And she came up to me and said, hey, I'm Pooh Shiesty mama. And I had just said some about that boy. And she said, I ain't like what you said. And, you know, Ma, I think, I won't say her husband, but Pooh Shiesty daddy represent another faction of Rap-A-Lot, but it's not Rap-A-Lot. When she said that, me and that white boy took off running from her. Yeah, she scared me because she kind of gangster. And I ain't said nothing about it.
Charleston White just ran into Pooh Shiesty's parents, the most dangerous OGs from Memphis. And you won't believe what happened to CW when these certified gangsters stepped to him about disrespecting their son, behind Charleston's loudmouth and internet antics. He was running his mouth about a young man whose bloodline runs deeper in these Memphis streets than most people could ever imagine. The shocking truth about what went down when real street royalty confronted this internet personality is wilder than anything you've seen on social media. And we got the receipts to prove it. Now, before we get into this wild confrontation, let me keep it 100 with y'all. Charleston White been running his mouth about Pooh Shiesty ever since homie got locked up, talking reckless about how prison was going to humble him and how the white man was going to teach him lessons. This internet personality was doing his usual routine, talking crazy on live streams, getting views off other people's pain, when he found himself face to face with people who don't play games when it comes to family disrespect. Now, hold up before y'all start thinking this was just some regular internet beef or clout-chasing drama. Charleston had no idea he was about to meet the woman who raised one of Memphis's most authentic street rappers and the man who was once considered one of the city's most respected kingpins. These ain't your average parents showing up to a PDA meeting. These are certified street legends who built their reputation through decades of surviving in one of America's most dangerous cities. But here's where it gets real spicy and why this confrontation was inevitable from the moment Charleston decided to make Pooh Shiesty's incarceration his content. So check it. Let's talk about who Pushiest Mama really is. Because this ain't no regular suburban mom we dealing with here. This woman is a certified gangster in her own right, and her story is just as wild as any Netflix series you've ever watched. Pooh Shiest's mother grew up in the same unforgiving streets of South Memphis that produced legends like Yo Gotti and Young Dolph. But unlike a lot of women who get caught up in their man's business, she was already connected to the streets before she ever met Ma Boss. She understood the rules of the game, the risks that came with the lifestyle, and most importantly, she knew how to survive in an environment where showing weakness could get you and your family eliminated. And when she linked up with Ma Boss, it wasn't some fairy tale romance. This was two soldiers building an empire in a war zone. Their relationship was tested by federal investigations, rival crews trying to move in on their territory, and the constant stress of knowing that every day could be their last. But what made their bond special was their shared vision for their family. They both understood that the streets were a means to an end, not the end itself. Real talk, when Ma Boss was facing federal time, she made sure the family stayed together. She managed the money, maintained relationships with key players in her organization, and kept their reputation intact while he was fighting his case. This required a level of street intelligence and political skill that most people never develop. She had to make decisions that could have life or death consequences, authorized actions that most people would never have to face. The respect she commanded in Memphis was earned through years of proving herself in situations where one wrong move could have gotten her and her family killed. She navigated federal investigations, rival crews, and internal betrayals while keeping her family intact and their organization profitable. This woman wasn't just some innocent bystander caught up in her man's business. She was a key player who understood every aspect of their operation. Her influence on Pushiest can't be understated either. While Ma Boss taught him about the business side of the streets, his mother taught him about survival, about loyalty, about never showing weakness even when the world is trying to break you down. She also understood the importance of education and legitimate opportunities, making sure Pooh stayed in school even while managing a criminal organization. But yo, this is where the story gets deeper than just street credentials. See, when Charleston White started disrespecting her son publicly, celebrating his incarceration like it was entertainment, he had no idea he was talking about the child of someone who had survived things that would break most people. This woman had watched the federal government try to destroy her family, had seen rivals attempt to eliminate her loved ones, and had never backed down from a fight in her life. The real kicker, though, let's talk about Pooh Shiesty's father, Lantrell Williams Sr., better known in Memphis as Mob Boss. This man wasn't just playing gangster for the cameras, like these internet personalities. Mob Boss was certified in these streets, and his operation was so sophisticated that it took federal agents months of surveillance to even begin understanding how deep his network ran. Real talk, the nickname Mob Boss wasn't just clever marketing. It was earned through years of moving serious weight and commanding respect across Memphis. He had connections that reached from the Mississippi Delta to the Arkansas border, using the I-55 interstate as his personal highway for distribution. His network included truck drivers who could move product across state lines, corrupt officials who could provide advance warning of law enforcement activity, and street soldiers who were willing to die for the organization. But here's what made Mob Boss different from your average street dealer. He understood that the biggest mistake most dealers make is getting high on their own supply, both literally and figuratively. While other crews were flashy with their money and violent with their enemies, Mob Boss operated more like a CEO than a street thug. He invested in real estate using properties across South Memphis as stash houses and meeting spots. He had legitimate businesses that could explain his income and provide employment for his crew. Most importantly, he understood that the key to avoiding law enforcement was staying below their radar while still generating serious revenue. That's why he founded Mob Ties Records, his own independent label that gave him a reason to travel, a way to explain large cash transactions, and most importantly, a path to respect that didn't require constant violence. But here's where it gets interesting. In 2007, Memphis police had been watching one of Mob Boss's operations for over a month. They set up surveillance on an apartment at 784 Porter Street that looked abandoned from the outside, but was actually a fully functioning trap house. The location was strategically chosen. Porter Street was a dead-end road in a neighborhood where police presence was minimal and residents minded their own business. Let me break down for y'all what happened when they finally moved it with those search warrants, because this scene was straight out of a movie. Detective Cottrell Robinson was the first man through the door, and soon as they busted in, chaos erupted everywhere. Mob Boss's cousin, Rico Johnson, tried to run from apartment 4 to apartment 3. Glass was breaking as someone jumped out the kitchen window. And then, get this, a 75-pound pit bull came charging around the corner, going straight for the officers' necks. Detective Robinson had to shoot that animal 3 times before it retreated to the kitchen where it died. That pit bull wasn't just a pet, fam. It was part of the security system. In the drug trade, having a vicious dog serves multiple purposes. It deters robbery attempts, warns of police raids, and can destroy evidence if trained properly. The fact that this dog was willing to attack armed police officers shows how well it was trained for protection. When the smoke cleared, police found a full operation that showed just how sophisticated Mob Boss's business really was. They recovered 12, 5G of cocaine, 8 lb of high-grade marijuana, digital scales on the kitchen counter, measuring cups by the stove for cooking crack, a Smith & Wesson on the couch, and $10,000 cash in Mob Boss's front pocket. Now, this is where we got to address the most serious allegations against Mob Boss, because this case shows just how deep his street credentials really run. Back in 2004, he got caught up in one of Memphis's most shocking murder cases involving a 24-year-old radio DJ named Rebecca Glenn. Rebecca was found strangled to death in her apartment by a dude named Stanley Andrews. But according to police reports, Mob Boss was charged as an accessory after the fact to first-degree murder. Here's where it gets real twisted. Word on the streets was that Rebecca had been playing Yo Gotti's music on the radio, but refusing to give Mob Boss or his Mob Ties artist any airtime. In the Memphis music scene, radio play was everything, fam. It was the difference between being a local hustler who rapped and being a legitimate artist who could make real money from music. Some say Mob Boss put a hit out on the DJ for the disrespect, though this was never proven in court. But the allegations alone show the level of power and influence he had in the city. What we do know for certain is that after Rebecca's murder, Mob Boss and a woman named Marquita Thomas were caught using the victim's credit cards and helping sell her stolen possessions. That's some cold behavior right there. Using a dead woman's credit cards like that. The case sent shockwaves through Memphis because it highlighted the dangerous intersection between the city's music scene and its criminal underworld. The investigation revealed some disturbing details about how the murder went down. Stanley Andrews had slipped past building security guards and was wandering the halls, knocking on random doors. When Rebecca opened her door to see who was there, Andrews forced his way inside, wrapped his hands around her neck, and strangled her to death before robbing her apartment. Stanley Andrews' own sister couldn't believe what her brother had done, telling Action News 5 that he called her from jail, saying Rebecca went off on him for knocking on her door, so he just snapped. But Andrews showed no remorse, acting like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. His sister said she was shocked because he didn't act like someone who had just snapped and killed a random woman. He showed no remorse at all. The case also revealed how radio DJs had real power in determining which artists got exposure, and that power made them targets for anyone who felt disrespected or ignored. Mob Boss caught accessory charges and first-degree forgery, but he managed to beat the worst of it with just a year of supervised probation. That light sentence should have been a wake-up call. But for a man like Mob Boss, the streets were calling too loud to ignore. Let that sink in for a minute. This was the level of violence and criminal activity that Pooh Shiesty grew up around. So now let's talk about what Charleston White said that got these Memphis OGs so heated, because his comments weren't just disrespectful. They were straight up celebrating a young black man's downfall. PY, man, I don't know why who writing his lyrics. The devil. How that boy think all that underscore as young as he is. Man, how that little underscore think all that underscore. How he know about all them. How he know how to kill the way he. After Pooh Shiesty got sentenced to 63 months in federal prison, Charleston went on his live streams laughing at the young man's situation like it was comedy. Charleston was basically saying that before Pooh went to prison, he was outside crashing out, shooting up clubs, and shooting people like it was nothing. Basically playing GTA in real life. He was talking about how Pooh would now be forced to follow the rules, couldn't crash out anymore, and was laughing about how the white man was going to teach him a lesson. In one of his most disrespectful rants, Charleston said, "That white man don't play." And he got that boy on what they call a probated sentence called probation. Get him, they call PO. Them POS make them walk a straight line. And they gave that boy Pooh Shiesty. He gonna be tight, open like, we ain't gonna have no problems out of Pooh. He was basically celebrating the fact that Pooh Shy would be under strict supervision when he got out, saying they got that boy on probation. All of them need probation. Officers say the best thing the white man can do to a gangster is give him a probation or parole officer. But here's what really got under people's skin. Charleston was laughing about how Pooh Shiesty used to be dangerous in the streets, but now would be harmless. Man, that's a dangerous motherrucker. You used to be bad in the streets. Look at you twittering in the metaverse world. Y'all used to be in the streets shooting guns. Now, look at that little noise be in your ears when you be typing sound wave better than that gun. For people who know the culture, that type of disrespect towards someone's child, especially when that child comes from a family with serious street credentials, is asking for problems. Charleston was essentially mocking a young man's incarceration and celebrating the fact that he would be under government control when he got out. The most disrespectful part was how Charleston was acting like he knew what was best for Pooh Shiesty's life, talking about how prison was going to fix him and make him a better person. That's some real condescending behavior right there, especially coming from someone who never lived a life he was criticizing. The real tea that got everybody shook happened when Pooh Shiesty's parents finally had enough of Charleston's disrespectful commentary. These weren't internet personalities looking for clout or trying to go viral. These were real street veterans who had survived decades in Memphis's most dangerous environment. When they stepped to Charleston, it wasn't with cameras rolling or social media posts. This was that old school, face-to-face type of confrontation where real issues get addressed by real people. No Twitter fingers, no Instagram live drama, just direct communication about crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. Charleston quickly realized he wasn't dealing with some random internet trolls or clout-chasing influencers trying to get their 15 minutes of fame. He was face to face with people who had lived a life he only talks about online. People who had survived federal cases, street wars, and everything that comes with being connected to Memphis's criminal underworld for real. The energy shifted real quick when Charleston understood the gravity of the situation. These parents weren't there to debate or argue about internet content or social media algorithms. They were there to let him know that disrespecting their son publicly, celebrating his incarceration, and making jokes about his situation was not going to be tolerated, period. And she came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm Pooh Shiesty mama." And I had just said something about that boy. And she said, I ain't like what you said. And I think I won't say her husband, but Pooey Daddy represent another faction of Rap-A-Lot, but it's not Rap Hot. When she said that, me and that white boy took off running from her. Yeah, she scared me because she kind of gangster, and I ain't said nothing about it since. You could see in Charleston's body language that he immediately understood he had crossed a line he shouldn't have crossed. The man who had been laughing and joking about Pooh Shiesty's federal case suddenly became much more respectful when faced with the young man's actual family members. After the confrontation, Charleston's whole tone changed completely. The man who had been making content off of Pooh Shiesty's pain suddenly became apologetic and promised him that he would never mention Pooh's name again in his content. Yeah, but I like that. I ain't __. I like that look. What do you like? That's some real humbling right there. Going from talking reckless on live streams to promising someone's parents you'll never mention their child's name again. The confrontation also showed the difference between internet tough talk and real street politics. Charleston built his whole brand on criticizing street culture and talking down to young black men who come from that environment. But when faced with real representatives of that culture, people who had actually lived through the experiences he only talks about, his energy changed completely. At the end of the day, this situation isn't just about Charleston White running his mouth or Pooh Shiesty's parents defending their son. This is about respect, family loyalty, and understanding that some lines shouldn't be crossed, no matter how many views or clicks you might get. Charleston learned a valuable lesson about the difference between internet performance and real-world consequences. When you're dealing with people who have genuine street credentials, your online persona doesn't protect you from accountability. The same energy you put out into the universe has a way of coming back to you, especially when you're disrespecting people's families. For Pushiest parents, this was about protecting their family's name and making sure their son's reputation wasn't being disrespected while he couldn't defend himself. In their world, allowing someone to talk reckless about your family without consequences is seen as weakness, and weakness can be deadly in the environment they come from. The confrontation also highlighted the generational aspect of street politics. Mob Boss and his wife represent an older generation of street figures who handle their business with a certain code of conduct. They understood that respect was earned through actions, not words, and that family loyalty was more important than any amount of money or fame. This whole situation also shows the toxic nature of internet culture, where people can make money off of other people's pain and suffering. Charleston was literally profiting from making jokes about a young man's incarceration, turning someone's lowest moment into contempt for his own benefit. The real question is whether Charleston will stick to his promise, or if he'll eventually go back to his old ways once the heat dies down, and he thinks people have forgotten about the confrontation. But one thing's for sure, he now knows that Pushiest comes from a family that doesn't play games when it comes to respect and loyalty. This confrontation also serves as a reminder that behind every rapper story, there's usually a family that has been through real struggles and real pain. When you're making jokes about someone's legal troubles or celebrating their downfall, you're not just disrespecting that individual, you're disrespecting their entire family and everyone who loves them. What are your thoughts on Charleston White's confrontation with Pooh Shiesty's parents? Do you think he learned his lesson, or will he go back to talking reckless once this blows? Over? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to check out our other videos breaking down the real stories behind hip-hop's biggest controversies. The street's been talking, and now y'all know the real story behind what happened when Charleston White met his match in the form of two Memphis OGs who don't play about their family. That's some real accountability, right there, fam. And it shows that no matter how big your internet platform gets, there are still consequences for crossing certain lines.